We're on House Bill 3643, bottom of page 9. I'll ask the clerk to read.
3643, Representative Clemmons, anti-Semitism.
Mr. Clemmons is recognized on House Bill 3643.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we should all be proud to live in the great state of South Carolina for a lot of reasons. But I'm going to share with you one reason that you may have never heard before. It's a historical fact that 348 years ago, South Carolina, before this union was formed, we were, of course, a colony of Great Britain. And the Lords Proprietors were in control. The Lords Proprietors hired an executive secretary to represent them with regard to matters going on in Carolina. That executive secretary was named John Locke. John Locke, who we respect today as a great philosopher. John Locke was commissioned by the Lords Proprietors to draft the fundamental Constitution of Carolina, our very first Constitution. And as a part of that, he included in that Constitution the right of free assembly and the right of free worship, the right to worship as you please. And he specifically stated that the Jew has the right to worship as they please in Carolina. Now, that may not be meaningful to us today, but considering 348 years ago, when Jews were being burned at the stake, when they were the scapegoat in Europe for everything from famine to economic disaster, it was noteworthy, and in fact, was noted at the time and hailed at the time as a great move forward in terms of right of religion. Well, I'm proud that that happened in South Carolina. As a result of that expression, truly the first time that Jews had been granted by a constitution of any government in the world.
Mr. Clemmons, let me get you some order, please. I'd ask the members, please give Mr. Clemmons your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That marked the first time in the history of the modern world that Jews were expressly given the right to worship. Again, synagogues were being burned throughout Europe. But in America, they could worship as they chose. So South Carolina became the center of the Jewish world in the Western Hemisphere up until the Civil War. And then New York transitioned to become that center point for the Jewish world. I'm proud of that history. You know, we've had our issues with respecting others that are different from us in South Carolina. We've had a difficult history of that, and we see vestiges of it still today. But you know, anti-Semitism, Jewish hatred, the hatred of Jews, is something that's been going on for millennia. It's not new. It certainly reached its crescendo, I think, in World War II with the annihilation of 7 million Jews in German ovens. Unfortunately, it hasn't stopped. We don't have to go far to see it. In my own hometown, in Myrtle Beach, a Dylann Roof-styled planned attack on Temple Emmanuel, a conservative Jewish synagogue, was thwarted by the FBI just a few weeks ago, where there was an intent to take the lives of the members of that congregation. We've seen throughout the first part of this year hundreds of Jewish grave markers, gravestones toppled around the country. We have seen dozens and dozens of bomb threats on Jewish community centers. And unfortunately, our universities and colleges are not immune. There is a group of citizens that call themselves Amka, which is a Hebrew term meaning people like us, that chronicle acts of anti-Semitism on campus. And over 600 acts of anti-Semitism were chronicled in the year 2015. There was a study done by Trinity University that among the Jewish students in the United States, that resulted in a finding that over half of all the Jewish students in the United States in 2013 and 2014 had experienced acts of anti-Semitism or had witnessed them on campus. We have a chance to address this, ladies and gentlemen. On your desk is a letter from our United States Senators, Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham. A few months back, I was seated in Tim Scott's office, and we were just enjoying some time together after a long day. And he was getting phone call after phone call from other senators about some legislative matter that was going on. Later, he told me that what that legislative matter was, he was addressing providing a uniform definition for anti-Semitism to be applied to the United States Department of Education. And later, that same day, that bill passed by unanimous consent in the United States Senate without a single objection. Unfortunately, the session timed out before it could be considered in the House and did not become law. But Senator Scott encouraged me, along with Senator Graham, as you can see in the letter on your desk, to move this bill forward in South Carolina, to give our educators a tool defining anti-Semitism, to take the guesswork out of it, to have a uniform definition, which is where we must start in order to push back on anti-Semitic behavior or any other type of bigotry. A personal aside, I thank you all. Almost all of us in this room have signed on as co-sponsors of this bill to send a strong message to the world that South Carolina opposes bigotry.
Mr. Clemmons, Mr. Clary has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Clemmons, thank you for bringing this bill to our attention. And do you know that I am a co-sponsor of this bill?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And my only question, and I've read it and I understand the last clause in the bill talks about that nothing in this would infringe upon any First Amendment rights that anyone would have. But coming from the community that I do and the academic freedom that professors enjoy in the universities around our state, I just wanted to pose the question to you as to whether or not this bill would do anything to interfere with teaching of a course where there's a talk about two states versus one state, those kinds of issues that come up in the academic world, so that to let the academic community rest assured that there would be no violations simply by discussing these issues in their classrooms.
Thank you, Judge Clary, for the question. And the answer is that this bill does absolutely nothing to limit free speech in the state of South Carolina. This bill is triggered whenever there is a breach of campus policy or a breach of the law. In that event, this definition is applied to determine the intent behind that activity. That's what this will do.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Clemmons.
As I was preparing to say, as I was gathering co-sponsors for this bill, all of you joined in together, most all of you, 95% of you did. I had the chance to present this bill to Representative Joe Neal. And in fact, I checked today, this was the last bill that Representative Neal co-sponsored. And his comment to me at the time was, I oppose anti-Semitism wherever it rears its ugly head. And that's what I propose we do here today. That we oppose, he said, I oppose bigotry wherever it raises its ugly head. Today, there's a rise in bigotry against Jews. This will help stem that tide, and it sends a strong message to every other state in this nation to follow suit, to stem the tide of rising anti-Semitism. Let's oppose bigotry today. I ask you all to support this bill. Thank you.